Typically on the show, we speak with advisors who are further along in their career, hearing about lessons they may have learned as a young advisor back in the day. We're changing up this week as we talk with two bright young advisors within Barnum Financial Group who are in the midst of their professional journey. Danny Hoffman and Nick Quagliani will share their current experiences as financial advisors, give you a glimpse at what a young advisor experiences in today's financial professional world. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. All right, Danny and Nick, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you guys on Small Steps, Big Wins today. And when I think about that concept, and I always reflect back to when I started and I had to really take small steps and have this vision to get the big wins. And you guys are in your early career. And I'll get into that in a minute with both of you. But I'm really excited to have both of you on the show today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You got it, guys. All right. Well, let me start with you, Nick. Tell us how you got in the business and tell us, how you got started.
Yeah. So my story is a little bit different than most, right? A lot of people kind of come out of college, know what they want to do with their life. I wasn't exactly that way. I started actually in the restaurant industry at 16 years old, stayed there till I was 30 when I joined this career. But in between there, I was anything from a cook to a manager. And so I worked my way up after I graduated college for hospitality and business management. I actually joined a restaurant group. I was there 2.5 years before I became a general manager at age of 27. I carried that for about another 2.5 years, did really well, got rewards through COVID, which was very hectic to manage in the restaurant industry. My store had the highest profit margins out of the entire chain. So I had success early on in that industry, but it just wasn't fulfilling for me. There was a point where my happiness started to diminish and really was trying to figure out what my next step was. And just so happened at the same time, we found out my wife was pregnant, and I knew that I did not want to be in a restaurant industry working nights, weekends, holidays, really putting blood, sweat, and tears into it and not getting rewarded enough. So, I was just a firm believer that at that time, God essentially put the right people in place for me to end up here at Barnum.
That's awesome. And that's great. And we'll get into a little more details in a second. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, my story is a little bit more traditional. I was straight off the campus about 3 years ago. I graduated college 2021. And for me, I think what's different than some others is this is what I knew I always wanted to do. And it's for a couple of reasons. I mean, my day to day is completely different than, what I expected maybe in college. But I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor. Reason one is because the aspect of money management, finances, investing interests me, right? Then two, I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I communicate. I like interacting with people. I didn't like, sitting behind the numbers, the spreadsheets. I wanted to be on the people side of this business. And that's exactly what this was. So for me, it was, hey, I want to be a financial advisor. But the big question was like, all right, where do I do it? Right? Who do I work with? I didn't really know the differences from company to company, but I think a good saying that kind of got me into Barnum and, that we use with clients is that people do business and work with individuals that they like and that they trust. So that's really what I was looking for. And when I was, onboarding, I was interviewing with all these different companies in college. It was, hey, where do I feel like the people are a little bit different? Where I'm not just a number. I'm not just a guy that's going to come in and, follow by their code and hopefully make it. I wanted to, surround myself with people that cared about me. And that was evident, individuals like Joe Lopresti, anyone I really talked to, when I was onboarding, seemed like they wanted me to do well. And so I was like, hey, I'll give it a shot. I think, these people have the same mindset as me. Let's do it. Right. And then, history is where it's at now, but it's exciting, and that's kind of how I got into all this. I didn't know what to expect, but really here we are now.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing, both of you guys. So, I mean, listen, it's not an easy industry to get into, and you both really got rolling pretty quickly, I would say, in your careers. And when I think about the business, one of the things we love to teach is the lifetime value of a client, right? And I know you both came in with the intent that you're going to be really successful, which you both are already at a very early part of your career and growing, but you have to get clients on board and all that good stuff. So what was it like mentally, like learning all that? You guys got all your licenses done, up front and really started hustling. And tell me how it was. You started off, Danny, but tell me how it was in terms of like what you were thinking at that point.
Yeah, well, it's funny because first out of school, I grew up really quick in this business. I look back on myself in college and I don't want to say it was immature, but I was a college kid, right? You're coming straight off the campus and there's a lot to learn about yourself, not only, who you're going to be as a professional, but about your life. And when I came in, I was like, all right, I got a job. This is it. Show me where do I pick up my paycheck, right? And that's not the case in this business. There's, a business that has to be built. So I think those first 6 months for me, I was a little lost. And then I surrounded myself with the right people. There's a good saying. It's, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right. And I think that's what really changed for me was getting the right mentorship, listening to the leaders in this business that started to flip the switch in my brain that, hey, I can't just coast, right? You got to come in here with intention. You got to start to figure it out. You got to learn every day. So after that 6-month period is really when I think my business started to not take off essentially, but was structured and well managed. And, that's the point in time where I really started to, get going. Right. And I think I really credit it to the individuals I surrounded myself with because I needed that, especially at my age, at 22 years old, I needed someone to tell me, hey, here's what you got to do. And I listen, I'm competitive. I know I had that in me, but I needed to be told, hey, here's how you get after it. Right. Exactly.
Good. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, for me, during the business starting up, it's ironic because the reason that I made the job change was for some, specific reasons I mentioned before. My son was about 2 months from being born, right? I have all these bills. My wife's working and I'm a couple of weeks into the business and she's asking how everything is going. And I have to tell her, well, sorry, honey, I haven't made any money yet, so I have to really thank her for being such a good support system. But really the first few weeks, there's a lot of ups, downs. It's a roller coaster of emotions. Did I make the right decision on what I'm doing here? And certain things just started to happen. You kind of have a big win that kind of levels you out a little bit. Then you have a deep dive the other way. And the mental fortitude that you gain really quickly is important to make sure that you're staying on track. You're taking each day with tenacity, and really all the resources here at Barnum was something that without that, I don't think I would have been successful early on because I started to utilize everybody, from the tech area, having meetings with Stefano on, hey, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing the right way? Just trying to elevate every week that I can. So it took a few months to really kind of get going. But from there forward, I think it was just learning every day, taking each step at a time and really becoming more successful as time went on. So
it's great.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that for the listeners here, you guys spent a lot of time early career on, and still today on the phone, talking to clients. And, one of the lost arts in the industry is really this, we talk about having balanced practices and being a fiduciary on both sides. And, both of you really took a liking to and enjoyed the insurance part of the business to get started, which ultimately now transitioned to you really doing more planning for your clients. But, Nick, how did that feel? Like, you met with a lot of clients, you did a lot of life insurance for them. Tell me how that was in the beginning.
Yeah. In the beginning,
how it evolved too.
Yeah. You're having a lot of conversations with many different people, right? Certain programs that we have in place allow us to connect with people all over the country. And, I think it really hit me, right? I started selling some policies. It felt good. It really helped me. Hit me when I had to do a conversion, help somebody that essentially needed a guaranteed issue policy that was dying. Right. And so really put some perspective into my mind on what we're doing each day, how we're helping people. And from there, I just was a firm believer when I looked at my own situation, if I were to pass away with my own family, have financial stability. So really taking an interest in the life insurance side to start was important, because when you veer into the financial planning that we're doing for our clients, right, a lot of people try to be wealth managers, focus on assets and leave that behind. But if their house isn't in order, how are you focusing on everything else in a balanced practice? So it was very important for me to make sure that the financial stability for the individuals that I was speaking with and working with was in the right place. So that myself, I felt good about now starting to help them with the long-term planning, the retirement planning, the legacy and estate planning, right? Tax planning. So all the other areas were very important as well. But without the foundation of the protection, we would never be able to get there.
Yeah, it's great. And sometimes having something like that to deal with early career makes a big difference, and you never forget that stuff. So it's really good. How about yourself, Danny?
Yeah, I think, again, when I started, it was like, everyone who becomes a financial advisor, I think in a way is thinking about the investment side, the retirement side of the business. That's kind of the fun stuff. We're not going to lie here, right? And then the protection, isn't as sexy, right? Yeah. But it's so important. And Nick uses the word foundation. And I think you start to realize that more and more when you get into the business. You can talk about the retirement. You can talk about what happens after you pass away. You can talk about, hey, here's how your portfolio might be, get you a 1% better rate of return, right? All that stuff advisors like to talk about, but none of it matters if you're not there for your family. None of it matters if you're too sick to, work, right? Too hurt to work. A spouse is without their husband, or a spouse is without their wife, right? Your whole life changes, and the investments don't really matter at that point, because you're worried about, hey, how do I feed my family? How do I stay in the house, right? So having that foundation, making sure that people have, are paying $40 a month for term insurance is important, because then you can know that if anything does happen, we're taken care of. Now let's focus on the bigger picture, what your life looks like, if we do live a long, happy, healthy life.
It's amazing. I'm ready to sign. I have a lot of life insurance, but I'm ready to buy some more.
Yeah, we'll talk after this.
I knew you were going to say that. So, but I think that you brought on those clients, and then you were able to, and for the listening audience, they've helped hundreds of people in a very early part of their career. How did you guys transition, and how was the movement getting the client then, working on their basic foundation, as you guys said, but then transitioning to the asset side of the business? How did that go, Danny?
Yeah, I think back to what we were talking about, that we first got on here, was, hey, you have your foundation. And then, now they've seen that we can do work for them and that we've done right by them. Right. And I think it makes the conversation much easier, right? You go back to individuals that you've done business with and that you trust and like, just like I said before. So us showing them that, hey, we have all this stuff put in place for you. We did right by you on this insurance side. Now let's talk about the nitty gritty. Let's talk about the other things. And it makes that conversation that much easier, knowing that we have a relationship built now. And we're going to do right by you with everything else that we talk about as well. So I think it's much easier than just saying, hey, let's get right into that. Let's, start with what you need and figure it out as time goes on.
And most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong here, in the beginning, you were teeing those up for someone on your team to work on.
Yeah, for sure. When you first get in, again, I'm 22 years old. I don't really know what's going on, right? I just know that I have to pick up the phone and, book it for the guys that know what they're doing, right? But your day-to-day slowly changes. And now 3 years in, I'm a completely different person than I was then, especially from the education standpoint and what I know. But, that's going to continue to change as well. So maybe I'm not making as many phone calls. I'm getting stuff teed up for me. The business changes, the idea changes, the goals change. And it's very exciting, right? To see where we're at when you first start and all the uncertainty, to really starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with this thing. So it's cool stuff.
Yeah. And 3 years is not a long time either.
It's all relative, right? I don't have that many years.
When you're 25, maybe 3 years is a long time. Nick, how was that going? Like teeing up appointments and, watching someone else do it. And did you learn a lot through that process? And I think now you're doing a bunch of that on your own, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, just to speak on the balance before I go into that, is balance is still something that I struggle with, right? As our business and practice changes really on a weekly and monthly basis. I do the personal development meetings with Joe Lopresti, and I told him like, hey, this is my main struggle. I don't think it's anything that, anybody else can really help me with too much. But he said, what's funny is the top producers that I meet with, that's the number one thing they say their main struggle is still. So I find that having a struggle to create a balance is a good thing because it always means you're growing.
Yeah.
And in regards to transitioning from dealing with mostly life insurance, scheduling the financial planning meetings, I was able to sit in on a lot of meetings and really learn a lot from Brian. And as we started to do those meetings on our own, the challenge to say, okay, I want to talk to somebody about the protection planning, but I also want to make them a client for everything else is kind of what's the best way to go about that. And sometimes they want to start on the planning and then we work backwards. Sometimes like this week, I have a client that I just finalized life insurance with yesterday. I'm meeting on financial planning tomorrow because he wanted to make sure that the protection was in order before he moved forward with anything else. So it's really just kind of bringing yourself to where the client is, realizing what that means, helping them with what is kind of be top of mind, because realistically, if you try to do anything else, they're just mentally not going to be there.
Yeah. Love it. Let's switch gears for a second. Let's, talk about mentally, but you brought up some points early on, like you have to do a lot when you get here. You guys got all your licenses. Are you guys working on some of your designations right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan and I are both kind of at the same pace with the certified financial planner.
How many you guys got knocked down so far?
Fourth module.
Nice. Congratulations on that. So you guys are working on that, but you come in, it's a little bit like a fire hose. Like how was it mentally? And tell me how your schedule was, and did you get a routine going? Like how did that work in the beginning?
Yeah. So beginning, it was really tough, right? I was really sitting there in a transition of starting a new industry, trying to make some money, still trying to focus on my personal life, my health and my fitness. I have a baby that is being born. So now I'm trying to make sure that I'm being a father at the same time. And as I joined this, unlike some other people, I joined with only 2 out of the 4 licenses that was needed. So it took me, over the next year and a half, really, to get all of my licenses, and really was challenging to do that. And the balance was really, hey, we're not going to let anything else interfere with what I'm going to designate for work hours. I have my morning hours for health and fitness. I have my work hours set aside, and I have my evenings to focus on my studies and anything else that I think is going to be important. And in the beginning, and I shouldn't say this in front of you, but I was working every Saturday at the beginning. I don't now, but that's something that I realized was going to be my dedicated family time, and the rest of the balance was going to be during the week. So really challenging, but if you have enough people around you that you're asking questions to, you're getting advice on how they tackle these things, I think that's what's been most helpful and impacted my decision making on how I was going to transition into the business. And
it's great. And I think the Saturday thing is interesting. When you look at the model that we've created, we bring a lot of people off the campus, so they don't have some of those responsibilities that they had, even though you were only 30 years old. You still had a lot of responsibilities that someone like Danny might not have had at 22, even though you were competitive and wanted to grow. You didn't need to. Yeah, as some people. So how was it for you getting started in the beginning because like you're your own boss here, like right. This is your business. You're an entrepreneur. Yeah. Did that structure, did it hurt you? Were you able to figure that out in the beginning? How'd that work?
Yeah, it was tough. It was a learning curve, right? And to be honest with you, I had no structure, right? There was all the hours in the day. I had nothing. I have 0 responsibilities coming out of school. Yep. Right. I lived at home. I didn't even have to make money if I didn't, want to. Yep. There's going to be food and dinner there when I got home at my mom's house. Right. Now things have changed, but I'm on my own. But it was a blessing and a curse to have that, because if you in this business, you control your own destiny, you control your own schedule, which is so nice to have if you treat it properly. If you don't, it can be something that gets you out of this business really quick, right? Because if you're, you have a free slate every single day. And if you say, hey, I'm just going to sit around and do nothing, it hurts your pockets, right? It hurts what you're trying to do. So for those first couple months, I think I fell into that, and I started to realize, hey, this isn't sustainable. I got to figure it out. I really have to come in here with attention. And again, I attribute, schedule, things like that to mentorship, leaders around me. But now it's, I have a clear cut structure. They say it takes 21 days to build a habit. And if you just do something for 3 weeks in a row, at the same time every single day, you get so used to it where if you don't follow that structure anymore, you're like, what the heck's going on, right? There's something wrong. I mean, if I go home at 5 o'clock on a weekday now and have nothing to do, I start freaking out because it's like, what am I doing? I got to be doing something, right? So I think just being able to set, certain time blocks in the day and follow that for just a period of time, you just get into, laser focus and you don't look back. You just start to follow that every single day. And I think that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, which is amazing. And you guys became entrepreneurs very quickly and you figured that out. What's, when you think of the future, like I'll start with you, Danny, when you think, oh my God, when I'm 30, it's 5 years from now, like, what's that look like in your business? Like, where are you going to be? How excited are you about that?
I'm super excited. And again, when I first started, I had no idea like what it could really be. I was like, all right, if I make $100,000, that'd be pretty cool. Right. And then you blow through those barriers and you're like, all right, what's next? Right. So you're always kind of adjusting your goals and, what you want on a daily basis because I didn't know anything different. Right. I didn't know what to expect. And now I have a little bit better of an understanding. But I think that, you asked me where I'll be at 5 years. I'm 30 years old. And I think it goes to my why in this business. And it took me a while to kind of realize what that why was. But I think growing up, I realized that the biggest stressor across America and in my household too was money, right? It can tear apart relationships. It can tear apart families. And I knew that I wanted to do something where I can help not only myself and my future family, but others, make that part of their life a little bit more simple. So at 31, I want to, be able to be a point in my life financially and my goals and things like that to take care of any children I have and my potential family. I want to make sure that when I get to that point, I'm ready, right? And I don't have to worry about, hey, what's next for me? I already know what's going to be next for them as well. But then two, we just want to grow this thing as fast as we can, right? And help as many people as we can. I think that's the big goal. Yep. It's tough to kind of say, hey, where are you going to be at in 5 years? I think what's a little bit easier, Paul, is saying, what can I do today? What can I do this week? What can I do this month? And if I keep, the name of this podcast, right? Small steps, big wins. Yep. If I keep doing those little things, I don't know where I'll be in 5 years, but I know I'll be happy with where I'll be in 5 years if I do those things.
It's amazing. And you're right. When you look at breaking barriers as you break them. And if you keep the habits, and by the way, you could form the habit the wrong way too in 21 days. So be careful. That's a great one, right? A lot of people don't realize that. They only look at the positive, but yeah, it's amazing. And I know what you'll be, who knows how big your firm will be and your team in the firm, How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I wish I started when I was Danny's age, right? So
can't fix that.
Yeah, I can't fix that. So the only thing that I could do is grow as fast as I can, right? And so that was one of the things that when I look at my future, there's got to be growth, not only on the business, professional, education, personal, right? So keeping that balance, I hope that in the next year, both Danny and I are sitting for the CFP exam and we have that designation under our belt.
Well,
and then, right, we have a team now where we started with just Dan and Brian and I. We have some junior advisors that we've brought, been bringing up between Gavin, Colin, and Paulie. We have an assistant now, right? So we want to keep growing our team, have more support staff, grow more advisors. And for my production goals, right? I mean, my goal this year is to do 500,000. So my goal by 2028, you showed a slide in Newport on who has the current numbers now at 500,000, a million, 2 million. If we scale at the same growth as a firm, what that'll look like in 2028. And I want to be included in those numbers, right? So by 2028, I want to be a $1 million producer, right? I have large goals from a production standpoint. And like Danny said, it comes down to the why, right? I want to make sure that as a father, as having a family, that I can financially support them, that I can have the freedom and flexibility as my kids get older to coach games, to be present in their lives and really impact as many lives as I personally can in reflection to the goal that Barnum has.
I love it. Well, it's great stuff. And let's talk about this. I know, Nick, you brought it up earlier about studying, and not getting the licenses up front, but getting them through the grind. But then you went right into the CFP and you both talked about mentors and learning from other people. So like I would say, being students of the business, we try to teach lifelong learning. So how do you think about learning? Like, where is that in your mindset?
Yeah, it was interesting for me because when I started studying for my life and health, the very first one, I left my other job. I gave myself like 3 months in between just to focus on studying because I didn't know how that was going to be for me. I was out of school for a little bit. And now that I started to study, educate myself on licenses, now the CFP, try to stay involved in what's going on in the market on a daily basis, I think there's going to be a next designation that I'll roll right into, right? I think once you get hooked and addicted to the fact that I'm learning, and with that learning, I'm able to do more for other people, it gets addicting for you to just want to keep doing it.
Right. So, and by the way, if you do that, then it just makes it even easier or less hard to get to those next levels. Go ahead. About you, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, the education part is, it's essential. I think in this day and age, especially with clients trying to find, hey, who's going to manage my dollars? Who am I going to give this responsibility to? It's so easy to find someone that can help you with that now. And what you have to do is differentiate yourself. Especially with social media, there's, advisors all over TikTok, right? If you're scrolling through your page or Instagram, whatever you're using, where people get an abundance of advice, right? And so how, as an advisor, what are you doing to kind of set yourself apart from the rest? Because I think there are in this business a lot of firms or people out there that might be putting people into cookie cutter things, right? And not really focusing in on, the total picture, but it might be just because they don't know how to help people with those things. So if I can, and we can learn everything that we can, it's only going to help us provide what we need to our clients. That's going to help them have a better situation for themselves, but also for us to broaden our business, right? Do everything that we're able to do. And I think that's what's so great about Barnum is you can truly do everything here in-house and help each individual in-house. We don't have to, send someone else to a property and casualty broker or do, you go down the street for your estate planning, right? We want to make sure that we can cover everything that needs to be covered for an individual, make it easier for them and easier for us.
That's great. Now, let's think about this. It's really a two-part question. I'll start with you, Dan. Like, when you first started, I know, as you guys said, your business has evolved where now, some appointments are getting teed up for you. You're teeing up for others and still doing some of the things like that. But what was a typical week like in your first year? How many calls were you making like on a weekly or a daily basis?
Yeah, a lot. It's different for everybody. Obviously, how many people you talk to is going to affect that number. But I would say maybe, a good goal when you first get in, you're just dialing was like 400 to 500 calls a week. 80, anywhere from 80 to 100 usually. Some weeks more, some weeks a little bit less. And I think how we track the business is, hey, how many dials am I making now? Maybe these weeks I'm making 2 to 250. But it's also because I'm on Zoom for 6 hours a week with clients running one-on-one meetings, right? So the structure of your business changes where you get to the point where maybe you're not making any dials a week and you're just running all these meetings that are booked up for you, but you got to get to that point. And then there's some individuals that love being on the front lines, right? And say, hey, I never want to get off the phone. I always want to be prospecting. So that's the beauty of this business, to turn it into exactly what you want it to be. And I think what's important in the aspect of teaming is that you have individuals that are at different points, right? Someone might like doing this, someone might like doing that, right? And so you surround yourself with people that, there's a one-stop shop. And if I don't have the answer, somebody else does. So day's always changing. Your business is always changing, but it's very exciting is what it is.
Yeah. And there's my favorite business book is Good to Great. And they say, get the right people on the bus, then get them in the right seat. Yeah. So it's really awesome. But last part of that question, and then I'll come to you, Nick, is when you look at households now, like Paul and Mindy Blanco, how many clients do you have that have any product with you right now after like 3 years of the business?
Oh man, I would say, any product, we're probably me and Nick, ourselves, we do a lot of lives on the insurance end. We're obviously bringing over our own clients. Maybe, 3 years in the business, we've probably done business with over 500 individuals.
Yeah. So you have a book now of 500 clients. Right. And I asked that question, not knowing the answer, but I figured it was something like that. It was always taught in the life insurance industry. Now it's obviously a different industry, but once you got to 500 households, now, it's just now time. You got the career. So to your question, to ask you the same question, Nick. So same about 500 households, you think?
Yeah, I would say even, when we look at our practice combined, we're probably up towards, 700-800 when you think about all the life insurance product, the assets, definitely headed towards 1,000 quickly.
And how was your first couple of months in terms of the phoning? Was it like same as Danny, where you were making like 500 calls a week or less or more? Were you home more than Danny, or were you making the same amount of calls?
No, I was putting in a lot of time, probably closer to the 350, 400 range. I was very specific on making sure that I was in the office until 7:30, 8:30 at night, calling West Coast a couple nights a week, right? But somebody that you had on the show, Tony Maiulo, I look at what he said and I take a lot into perspective on how I'm going to build my practice in a similar way, where every day can't be the same for me. It's just the type of person I am. I need it to be changed up. I can't do the same Zoom meeting every day. So I'll always incorporate dialing into my practice. Prospecting, it's something I enjoy. I enjoy the mentorship and the leadership aspect. And then I love connecting with people. Now it's pretty much all Zoom for us, not too much in person, just the way that we're scaling our business. But it allows us to be much more efficient. So, right now around the same 250 dial still. And I hope that it never really gets below that. And I'm still able to scale as much as possible on my own meetings.
Yeah, which is amazing. So last question for you guys is if you were doing this all over again, like you guys combined have like 6 years, 7 years experience, let's say combined, right? What would you say to someone that was just coming into this industry?
Yeah.
What would you say, if I could do this differently, I would have done this?
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Well, I actually, with Barnum, I'm asked to help with interviewing a lot of like oncoming kids to give them perspective on, what to expect. Right. And I think you have to, for that first year, you have to give yourself that first year in this business because you really don't know what it's going to look like. Right. So that in that first year is super tough because, especially for someone I can talk to, someone coming out of school. And what you see is you see your friends getting on these salary jobs, maybe open up their laptop for a couple hours a day and getting their paycheck every other Friday. Right. That's not the case in this business. And it's really difficult to be a part of that and see how others, the work that you're putting in compared to what they're putting in and the outcome. Right. But that dynamic quickly starts to change if you trust what you're doing and you surround yourself with the right people. So my piece of advice is hang in there, get through those couple months when it's really rocky, find support systems around you. But two, I think a good saying is comparison is the thief of joy, right? I think it's the only person that you should really be comparing yourself to do. And I think it's something that we pride ourselves on our team is who you were at this point last year, who you were at this point last month. So the numbers that we look at are, hey, what are our individual growth numbers? Because it doesn't matter what, Joe down the block is doing and Paul's doing, right? It's about what you're doing and what you're turning your thing into. So just focus on yourself, focus on growing yourself as an individual, the relationships outside of work, what you're doing in work, and everything else will follow as long as you're, working with the right people and have the right mindset on everything. Just hang in there is really my one piece of advice.
Yeah. Because then you blow by everybody and
exactly. And then you don't look back.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's where I feel like I am.
I love it. How about you, Nick?
Yeah. So I have a couple here. The first and biggest one is having patience, right? Not getting too overwhelmed, having patience as you start in the business. The second one is just with where the business is going, right? You can't be in every person, and I can do everything myself, right? And so teaming, I think, has been a large aspect and a tribute to my success and Danny's success is having other people to rely on, but also having other people to hold you accountable. And outside of teaming, I mean, really embracing the changes in technology, right? As we noted a little bit before, there's a lot of different forms of advisors out there and even AI, right? And we've at Barnum have utilized that to, as a value add for us. We're utilizing AI to be more efficient, right? So if you're an advisor joining the business and, at any age and you say, I don't want to adapt to the technology and the times, you're going to get left behind. So you have to be adaptable, you have to be patient, and you have to have others surrounded around you.
Love it. Well, guys, listen, super proud of both of you guys. I know that my saying is the best is yet to come. I know that's going to happen. I know that both of you guys will be knocking on that door in 2028, 2030 of that $1 million producer. You know, it used to be the 4-minute mile. Now that's getting better. And I saw this stat the other day, which is pretty crazy to me. They talk about shattering a record. Well, someone ran a half marathon and the record was 57 minutes and 42 seconds. Someone did it in 56, like 40. And so you think about what's happening in our world with embracing stuff, using technology and the mindset. Sky's the limit for you guys. So congratulations on that. And you truly are taking small steps every day and getting huge wins. So I can't thank you enough for you doing it and for sharing and leading other people, because I'm sure there's so many people that will listen to this that will get great strength and look at the business differently because of you two guys. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for the partnership.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate everything about you, Paul. Thank you.
You got it, guys. All right, everybody have a great day. Like us on Spotify and Apple. Share with everybody and talk to you guys soon. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.